Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on this SAP Community Call. I'm Lena, part of the SAP Community and Influencers team, and I'm happy to be your technical host and moderator for this call today. I'm joined by Elvira Valles, who is our Senior Vice President and Global Head of SAP's Globalization Services here at SAP, who is going to give you an overview of localization and why localization is a top strategic priority for SAP and a must-have for enterprises. Before we dive into the topic, I'd like to give you, as I just did, a little overview of the chat and the Q&A functionality here in Zoom. So the chat is really more for chatting between us and sharing insights. But if you have questions that come up during the call, feel free to raise them in the Q&A button here in Zoom at the bottom of your screen. Elvira saved some time towards the end after her presentation to cover questions and to give you answers to the questions that come up during the call. As always, this is a recorded session, as I just said, and the recording will be shared with everyone on our YouTube channel, SAP Community, in a couple of days. With that being said, I'm handing over to you, Elvira. The stage is yours, and I'm happy that you joined us today.
Thanks, Lena, for the kind introduction, and thank you for having me on the call. And welcome, everybody, from wherever in the world you're dialing in. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone. It's really glad to be with you today and to be with the SAP community. I also must say I personally have benefited and have really appreciated the community channel on YouTube. When you're looking for some information as an SAP aficionado, then you go to the community channel and there you find ample great information, and all packaged and shrink wrapped in a great recording. So thank you also, Lena, for you running these community calls. So our topic today, everyone, will be the topic of localization. Why it is a strategic priority for SAP and a must-have for enterprises. And I'll share with you, first of all, the value of localization that it brings, what it is, what we do understand as localization, and customer success stories, as well as some partner success stories. And as this is a community call, of course, I would like to also put emphasis on how to engage with SAP on localization. If you have questions, if you have ideas, if you have comments. So with that, I'd like to start with some motivation why localization is ever prevalent and these days more than ever. What are the global dynamics that fuel the need for localization? And what you can see on this screen is certainly the number of evolving regulations that happen around the world. And these local regulations keep, number one, emerging. So for example, if you look at the OECD countries, which is quite a number of countries in this world, there is a new type of regulation emerging and has been emerging called SAFT, which we see in Portugal, in Poland, in Romania, in Hungary. Many of us remember Brexit, which happened at the beginning of the year 2021. These are just two examples, and there are other regulations that are either emerging or constantly changing. And with these regulations that either emerge or that evolve over time, enterprises are in a need to respond to them. They're not optional, they're mandatory. And enterprises are looking for regulatory relief. So then the question is, fine, if there are all these regulations, what to do about it? And of course, enterprises must respond to these emerging and evolving regulations. And while looking at it only as a burden, one can also look at this challenge of emerging regulations as an opportunity for business process automation that is fueled by localization. So with that comes the ability to look at these regulations as a way, as a trigger, as a forcing function to reconsider what is done manually and what can be automated. I start with some classic examples that probably many of us don't even think of as an automation, however it is. Think of payment processes and automatic updates to payment processes, or think of the speed and accuracy of an automated payroll. If an enterprise operates in 7, 8, 9, 10, sometimes 40, 50 countries around the world, being able to process payroll for a global workforce accurately, on time, within the confines of ever-changing regulations is a huge automation that enables enterprises to operate in all the countries of their choosing. If we look at the area of tax processing needs to be streamlined in each country an enterprise operates, and then of course across countries. Audit trails are more than ever the rule, not the exception. And of course, we see more and more trends for electronic documents, electronic business documents, that is, that enterprises need to exchange with authorities. And want to do that manually? I guess not, unless it's a really low volume. So the automated exchange of these electronic documents is an opportunity for automation. And with all of that, enterprises can increase their efficiency, their reliability, and basically replace repetitive tasks with automation. So localization plays a key role in business process automation. With that said, let's continue on our journey through localization and the value it brings to enterprises and to SAP's customers. If we look at the key values at an overview level, then we'd like to bring forward 3 of them that are key. The first one being adherence to legal mandates. And that's what we've just spoken about. There are new and evolving regulations. I mentioned some of them, there are many more. And they affect businesses, they affect business processes, and they affect several countries. And by the way, even if they're local to one country, it may affect the interaction between that country and other countries. So with SAP's mandate to serve the localization needs of SAP's customers, we deliver solutions that enable the adherence for enterprises to these legal mandates. And what's very important, we do not do that initially once a customer acquires a solution, but for the lifespan of an SAP solution. So if a solution is in maintenance until many years into the future, then SAP continuously delivers legal changes, meaning if a law evolves, if a business process is covered today in the solution and the regulation changes, you will have as a customer peace of mind because SAP keeps on delivering legal changes for these laws. And that is really a regulatory relief, which is a huge benefit to customers, that as an enterprise, I don't have to think about the regulations in country A, B, C, D. SAP keeps track for me what's happening there. SAP notifies me and tells me where I need to move forward with adherence to legal mandates, and delivers me a legal change notification as a service and delivers to me the legal changes as a regulatory relief. And of course, the next value being is we enable enterprises to build resilience. If business processes adhere to legal mandates locally, ultimately we enable the company to adhere to legal mandates globally. And with that, we enable sustainable business practices for enterprises, which allows them to be resilient, integrated, and efficient, also in times of change. Just look back at the last 18 months of the pandemic. Let me make that tangible. With all the changes that happened due to the pandemic and the number of laws that emerged in so many countries or were changed, by being locally compliant and by being integrated across the various countries, SAP enabled resilience for customers to deal with the pandemic, its onset, the duration, and hopefully soon for all of us collectively, its aftermath. And as mentioned, another key value of localization is the automation of repetitive tasks such as payroll and, very important lately, business to government interaction, which frees capacity for value creating tasks. And I'll get back to this topic of business to government interaction later on. That's why for right now, I'll be brief on this one, as we'll deep dive more into that topic later on. So let's look at what are the solutions, the local solutions that SAP delivers for global success. And let's start off by explaining what SAP understands at software localization. Of course, we do software localization for the various solution areas, for the various lines of businesses like finance, spend management, human resources, customer experience, and of course also document and reporting compliance, not to forget internationalization standards. And the type of localization that SAP provides is built-in and off the shelf. So it comes with the product. It's an essential part of the solution. It is configurable. And of course, there is a need for extensibility. And it touches core end-to-end processes like recruit to retire, like lead to cash, like source to pay. And also emerging domains like sustainability and sustainability reporting. And we'll see more about that later on as we go through this community call together. Let's take a look at the areas where SAP Globalization Services offers capabilities to support regulations. And I'll not walk you through all of them in detail, but you can see classic fields in finance, in document and reporting compliance, in spend management, in human resources, and in customer experience. And if we look at the topic of delivering peace of mind that I mentioned earlier on, and we look specifically at legal mandates and standards, then I want to bring up some things, some regulatory reliefs, where I think customers are particularly prone to asking for updates from SAP regularly. Of course, enterprises need a robust, up-to-date accounting process, rather accounting processes in all the countries they operate, and audit-proof financial statements across all the entities they have. Cross-country transparency for legal reporting and automated submission is another key topic. Have I mentioned the need to pay the workforce correctly in all the countries where one operates? And this sounds like a basketball score, but SAP serves over 100 countries with the payroll that we're providing to SAP's customers. And of course, when employees do spend, discretionary spend, on either shopping at the various sites, then it needs to be a non-event. It's something that happens at the least amount expended, as efficiently as possible, adhering to all the legal regulations in the various countries. And that we do with localization of spend management. And of course, electronic business documents need to be submitted in line with legal mandates, automated in the format required by the respective authorities. All of that delivers peace of mind to SAP's customers for the lifespan of a solution. And these are just typical examples where we get inquiries from customers in terms of localization. That's of course not a finite list. And as you can see from these examples, many of these processes cross line of business boundaries. So an employee doing discretionary spend is a spend management item. At the same time, it can be an item that is taxable in a payroll, and both needs to be considered. Now, beyond geographical boundaries and still within regulatory boundaries. So where localization plays a key role is when companies transition from a single country to multi-country operations, or likewise, if enterprises are already present in multiple countries, if they then expand further and open up a new site, then opening up that new site is assisted heavily by SAP having a localized version available in that additional location where an enterprise desires to set up business. It allows for market expansion, giving a competitive edge to customers, and enterprises can adopt to the evolving local, regional, or global regulatory policies and meet the growing transformation needs in any region they operate. Whether it is make taxes digital by the UK, whether it is SAFT, whether it is various regulations around e-invoicing, Nota Fiscal in Brazil to be mentioned, GST in India, withholding taxes wherever they occur. These are just examples to be mentioned. And let me say a word about partners. Of course, this is and when I say this, I mean localization. Localization is an endeavor that SAP addresses jointly with its partners. And by the way, if there are any partners on this call, we're very happy to have you here. You enrich SAP's portfolio. Partners lend their expertise about local processes, their implementation expertise, their domain expertise to SAP's customers, and they make, together with SAP, a rich offering in terms of localization. Partners come into the picture by enabling a quick rollout, by providing domain expertise on local compliance that sometimes local partners particularly distinguish themselves with, and they offer complementary solutions. And of course, if you think of the world of statutory reporting, for example, partners do and can create reports in countries that SAP doesn't serve out of the box, or on subnational level, where there might be particulars, or for specific industries, or for specific goods shipped or produced. So there are ample areas where partners enrich the offering, and we, together with the partners, are very happy to jointly serve that need of enabling local success to be globally successful. So a little more on partners. Where do partners play? As mentioned, they provide domain expertise, they implement localized SAP solutions, and they build extensions to enhance localizations or to create new localizations. And in that light, let me mention some partner success stories so it becomes more tangible. So let's look at the CAS Group. They build a tax solution in Brazil on SAP Advanced Compliance Reporting. We do have a localization for Belarus for SAP S/4HANA with EPAM. Sotis built an e-invoicing solution in Uruguay, and Epiuse, for example, built a payroll localization for SAP SuccessFactors for either Peru and also for Vietnam. These are all very successful examples of how partners see value and provide their expertise in a particular field by driving localization in a specific area. Now, if we look at some more of the statistics, isn't it lovely that if you have a community call, and statistics, of course, is going to be a part of it. So if we look at S/4HANA Cloud, we currently have 43 local versions available. If we look at the S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition, it is 63 local versions. And of course, as mentioned, we keep up with regulatory needs as they evolve and serve customers with legal changes in case, and that case happens extremely often, that regulatory mandates change. And that also helps, and we see that with many of our customers, where more and more subsidiaries pick up S/4HANA Cloud, it allows customers to expand and do serve subsidiaries around the globe with localization of SAP S/4HANA Cloud. And I would like to mention that, of course, in addition, we have a roadmap for S/4HANA Cloud. And with that roadmap, we will serve also, in addition, another 16 countries in the upcoming quarters. So the 43 local versions that are prevalent and available right now will be enhanced with, or will be 16 additional countries or local versions will be added. And with that, I'd like to talk about some of the aspects where we see localization come into play for S/4HANA Cloud. One of them is, of course, customers who want to expand business operations across multiple countries as they enjoy S/4HANA Cloud. Also, of course, addressing the legal changes and the compliance requirements on time. And very importantly, benefiting from the innovations that happen in the area of document and reporting compliance, where the number of countries that implement continuous transaction controls and expect either real-time or periodic reporting is increasing steadily, and we'll see more about that later. And of course, managing taxes, managing tax compliance locally and globally with built-in capabilities for indirect tax. With that, let's look at success factors. Here, SAP serves with Employee Central 101 local versions. There are 47, now 48 Employee Central payroll local versions. And of course, there are also the human capital payroll local versions. And if we're looking at the needs that are served, the values that are driven, it is of course serving a global workforce, meeting the needs of local payroll regulations wherever that workforce is present. Time management, also a dimension that has many local aspects, with a real-time view on entry and approval. Localized payroll logic to also meet diverse compliance needs. And that was, by the way, an area that was heavily impacted by changes and updates of governments during the pandemic. When it came to payroll, we were glad and happy and also very proud to serve our customers during the pandemic, being a partner at their side, serving their needs, having a reliable business partner, serving them with the legal changes, with meeting the laws and regulations that enabled them to keep the lights on and serve their customers in turn during the pandemic. And of course, statutory reporting and integration to finance. If we're looking at SAP Business by Design, there are 146 local versions. Of course, extensibility by partners and lots of software solution partners with plenty add-on solutions. And in the interest of time, I'm going to skip some of the details here. I want to point out definitely that in the world of SAP Business by Design, a key ingredient to the localization is the ability for partners to address business-specific needs using localization extensibility and creating their own additions to the SAP delivered local versions. And as you've seen from the statistics that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, that capability is also widely used and widely applied by the partners in the various locations around the world. And we would like to keep on encouraging partners to serve customers in the world of SAP Business by Design. Looking at SAP Concur, currently there are 22 local versions that are localized when it comes to Concur Spend. There are 29 product languages and ample customers that are live using localized capabilities. What is it that we're addressing in the world of Concur Spend in terms of localization? Of course, there's statutory allowances that vary greatly between countries. In some countries, public transport plays a huge role, like in Japan. Electronic invoicing plays a huge role, like in China. And very important, there's the topic of localized machine learning, looking at the content that is localized to reduce fraud. And ultimately, efficiency in compliance for tax and digitized documents for both receipts as well as invoices. And if we look, for example, at Japan, it is amazing the efficiency that is gained by enterprises due to the localization of what is called so-called IC cards in Japan that enable employees to use public transport. And people simply wave cards at their corporate entrance points or from their work from home site, and all the expense activities taken care of. So no muss, no fuss, serving the employees with a highly convenientized process where localization plays a heavy hand. Now let's look at the world of procurement with Ariba Network. Here we're serving 40 local versions with e-invoicing. More than 3,000 customers are connected to SAP Ariba, and lots of invoices are issued globally. If we're looking here at the processes, then it is, of course, to get products and services in front of active buyers all over the globe, connect buyers from a number of countries to suppliers, and of course provide that e-invoice compliance in consistency with the country-specific formats, which can have to do with the way an invoice has to look, which can have to do with the format, it can have to do with the archiving, it can have to do with the approvals. There are many local flavors, and Mexico, for example, looks very different than what Germany requires, and public sector might look very different than what the private enterprises demand. And all these intricacies need to be adhered to, in particular when it comes to invoicing, which ought to be seamless no matter of the location of the invoicing. With that, I'd like to take an excursion and like to take us into the world of global tax and reporting obligations. Of course, let me start first with tax and reporting being a specifically dynamic field when it comes to regulations, where we've seen a lot of movement in the last couple of years. And customers, of course, want to manage their indirect tax consistently, cost effectively on a global scale, and need to serve the various statutory reporting needs, which happen to differ greatly from country to country, with a simple adoption of the various legal reforms, which also keep evolving. Very often we meet a world where there is every quarter additions to a legislation. And as an enterprise, a company wants to have transparency where they're standing relative to their reporting needs, reporting mandates, and do so in a cost-efficient way. So it's about staying compliant globally at affordable costs and doing so real time with an audit trail and understanding that the world of statutory reporting and the world of real-time exchanges with business partners and authorities is blurring. So what are the drivers of this digital compliance? For governments, of course, it is also to prevent tax evasion. So they come up with real-time control of business transactions. It is about the efficiency of government agencies. They want to automate the reporting processes. They want to do forecasting, analytics, statistics. And there's a digitization of public procurement that's happening in many parts of the world. And all of that goes hand in hand with the digitization of the economy overall, which is about topics like process efficiency, automation, and interoperability. This slide here, if you think, oh, gee, I can't read this, exactly. That's the point. You can't read it because the number of regulations that you see on the slide is just increasing every year. This looks like, a skiing slope in a way. However, it's not going downhill, it's going uphill from left to right, wherever more countries come up with regulations around e-invoicing, e-delivery, e-payments, e-payroll, by the way, not to forget. And behind it are either tax authorities with their reporting and clearance needs, public procurement agencies with business to government obligations, or digitization agencies for local B2B standards. And if we look at that increasing number of regulations in the world of e-invoicing, then if we look at the SAP solutions for global tax management, we see two worlds. You have tax controls with SAP Tax Compliance, which takes care of the controls internally to an enterprise. And then you have the world of interaction with business partners and authorities, whether it is real time or whether it's periodic. And that is served by SAP Document and Reporting Compliance. Lately, we've done an electronic invoicing and electronic reporting virtual summit, which dealt with SAP Document and Reporting Compliance and how it serves the needs of SAP's customers in that world. We had 1,980 registrants for a 2-day virtual summit, and people were following very closely what fellow customers had to report in terms of value realized with SAP Document and Reporting Compliance, success stories, implementation stories, and also the latest and greatest in terms of capabilities from SAP, as well as the roadmap. And that is a testimony to the increased interest and the increased need of customers to get active in this world of global tax management, in particular when it comes to interaction with authorities and business partners. With that, and after speaking about taxes and the interaction with business partners and authorities, let's completely switch gear and look at the persona of the user and their preferred work environment for a minute. And if we look at the way many employees, many customers would like to operate, then we see, of course, a trend towards simplified interaction, faster time to value, and basically picking up users in the environment in which they wish to operate. And for many, that is an environment of social media. If you deal with an applicant, social media is a very good choice. when it comes to employee self-services, social media can be a very good choice. When it comes to expense management and submitting expenses, doing it within the environment of social media can be a very good choice. So it facilitates, by being present in social media, employee collaboration, supporting remote workers, and of course, business continuity. And to serve that purpose, and because social media tend to be very localized, what we use in Korea or in Thailand or in China can be very different than what is used in the United States or Canada, and that can be very different than what is used in Germany. There are a number of social media integrations that are localized, whether it is for employee onboarding or HR self-services or analytics, where people wish to look at reports in their social media of choice, or whether it's around expense and reimbursement. And we're very happy to serve personas like the job applicant, the employee, the traveler, or the tax accountant in their environment and social media of choice. For example, with WeChat, DingTalk, or Line. And let me look at another area where localization delivers ample value to SAP's customers and provides regulatory relief. We all have seen that sustainability gains more and more traction around the world, which is something at SAP we deeply applaud. And we want to do our part to serve that purpose. And it also has a localization aspect. For that, we provide localization for sustainability, because the reporting needs on what is a sustainable practice, what are the laws around the world when it comes, for example, to permissible amounts of plastic that happen to be in the waste part, is very localized. And for that, also localization has an angle to sustainability. We're very happy to serve first pilot customers, for example, in Ontario, Canada, and in other places around the world, with a beta shipment that happened this year in August, where the general availability is planned soon. And that was a first deliverable around sustainability and localization. And with that, I'd like to just briefly look at a customer success stories to make it more tangible for you, where we serve SAP's customers and enterprises. Just to mention a few of, we have, for example, Renaissance, which uses successfully SAP SuccessFactors and processes payroll in a quite impressive speed for more than 8,600 employees. We have Ultra, which uses S/4HANA Cloud to manage businesses in various Brazilian municipalities. We have Aplex, also using S/4HANA Cloud to serve Taiwanese regulations on electronic documents with real-time reporting. We have Sun Chemical, which was also very vocal in terms of the challenges they overcome when it came to lack of flexibility in their digitization process, lack of transparency, serving multiple service providers when it was about digital transaction management. And SAP provided them a value proposition with shorter response time to new mandates and a document processing time for accounts payable that was reduced by 30%. And many non-value activities were eliminated. With a single solution supporting multiple countries, backed by one solid framework. So they can also in the future grow to even more areas where they operate, more countries where they operate. If we look at Nestle and their operation in 150 locations when it comes to Brazilian tax laws, we support them with accurate tax data and real-time analytics. And the value proposition here is clear. It's a high accuracy, it's automation, and reduced manual tax preparation processes. If we look at low services, who needs to interact with public sector and needs to exchange electronic invoices with public sector, they had a challenge. In many countries it is mandatory, like in the Nordics, like in Germany, to have these electronic exchanges with the public sector. And they needed a standardized framework that allowed them with one solution to serve many countries. Now they have their exchange with the public sector automated. Many manual steps that were frankly fairly repetitive were eliminated. And the reduced cost of implementing e-invoicing per customer is flabbergastingly high. It's more than 75%. An example on the social media integration that I mentioned earlier. If we're looking at DingTalk integration with SuccessFactors and SAP Analytics Cloud, it is about an HR transformation where we have a SuccessFactors integration with DingTalk, a data integration with BW for HANA, an enterprise dashboard, and Analytics Cloud integrating with DingTalk. All of that serves the talent selection, education, and retention. And it leads to a business situation with transparency. And by the way, happier users because they operate in their environment of choice. And then also an example from Africa, where we have Deloitte Africa, which combined practices across 17 local versions that historically operated independently. And the value proposition was, of course, a streamlined connect to cash business process with SAP S/4HANA. The value proposition is around automation, about harmonized multiple financial processes, optimizing resources, and reducing the period close across their countries of operation. All of these stories show countries operating, whether it is in finance, whether it is in HXM, whether it is in the area of spend management, successfully in countries due to the provisioning of localization capabilities. And with that, I'd like to go back to where I started, summarizing the key values that we serve with localization by SAP Globalization Services. It's the adherence to legal mandates, not only initially at the outset of a solution once customers acquire it, but throughout the time they keep on using the solution while it is in maintenance. Delivering regulatory relief, delivering peace of mind for every legal change that is dropped and delivered. The resilience that customers and enterprises gain by being locally compliant, globally successful, leading to sustainable business processes. And of course, the automation in areas such as payroll or business to government or business to business interaction when it comes, for example, to localized electronic documents. And I guess with that, I'll stop sharing and we can see what questions we have and what comments we have in the chat.
Thank you so much, Elvira, for the insights and that overview and your presentation. I actually have one question from myself, but we prepared the poll. So guys, we have a question for you. I'll launch the poll now and I'd like everyone to participate. We have 2 questions prepared for you. First, poll should be now visible to everyone. It's about whether you were aware of the localization capabilities offered by SAP, and I see that people are already participating. Brilliant. Elvira, I have a question with regards to like the current situation that we're all in. I was wondering how COVID-19, as it was a lot of like local but also global challenges, how did like our customers deal with the challenges? Was there any can you share any insights that our customers had with the localization during that time?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Lena. And First of all, let me applaud the many of our customers that really stood again by their customers in this time of pandemic. And it was a time of incredible stress and also need to change, need to adapt for many of SAP's customers. And we were serving that need with fulfilling, with delivering the various legal changes that customers required to deliver the essential businesses that they are, that they were, and that they serve. If you take the area of HXM, for example, we saw an incredible spike in changes in labor laws that governments put into place, such that employers could deal with the agility and frankly with the versatility that was required due to the changes in the pandemic. If you think of something like furlough, that came into place in various countries around the world, and SAP needed to respond to it. So it was quite essential for customers to be afloat, to adhere to these fast changing regulations during the pandemic. And it was SAP's proud moment really to shine in that and serve customers very, very quickly so that they could continue to serve people and their customers during that pandemic. And I can tell you from the teams that while of course everybody also at SAP, like everybody else around that planet, went through the pandemic, it was also a moment of great pride for everyone to serve our customers in this time of change and in this time of stressful changes. We delivered in a very agile manner, very quickly, all the required changes that were made and that were needed for customers of SAP to serve their customers in turn, to be able to produce, to be able to pay people, to be able to do expenses, to be able to deal with different reporting, to be able to do with different financial management. So all of that was done with great versatility, delivering really regulatory relief. And it was a time of great pride for the team to do something essential for the community.
That sounds good. That sounds successful, at least. With regards to that topic, Felipe actually asked a question. During the COVID pandemic, many SAP ERP rollouts were stopped. Was SAP also impacted by that?
Put it this way. It was very clear that at the onset of the pandemic, customers changed their plans sometimes in terms of what is absolutely essential at the very moment. And one aspect, for example, was the very quick implementation of legal changes, because they needed to continue to process payroll. They needed to continue to report to authorities. They needed to continue to do business. They needed to continue to operate. So the focus changed in terms of what was absolutely essential in the moment. Felipe, when I look at it from the point of view of localization, it was actually a moment where this promise of SAP, this value of SAP to serve our customers for the lifespan of a solution came really to the forefront, because we were there for them in the moment where we needed to serve them, adhering to all these changed laws. So yes, it impacted localization. It impacted localization in the sense of a significant spike in terms of new laws to be adhered to, new laws around the world to be served.
Okay, great. That was the one question that was in here for this topic. What also always helps our members that our speaker summarizes a little bit on the overall topic. And I really like the title of the session, that it's really like a must-have for enterprises. Can you maybe like summarize again why this is a must-have for enterprises and why this is so important for SAP's strategy?
I'll be happy to do so. If we look at enterprises, the vast majority of enterprises, by the way, in different locations around the world, operate in several countries. All enterprises, even if they operate just in one country, are all corporate citizens of this planet, right? And something that is very prevalent is laws and regulations. To deal with that, enterprises need to adhere to local regulations, to legal mandates. And SAP's Globalization Services, which delivers localization, has the task, has the mandate, has the privilege to deliver these localizations to customers, to enterprises, to operate in many countries around the world, to provide them regulatory relief, to enable adherence to legal mandates, and also with that, to drive sustainable business practices. Because as an enterprise, I don't need to worry about what's the next regulation that's coming somewhere where I'm not necessarily expert in. I have a strong business partner with SAP that helps me serve these needs. And that also leads to a great amount of automation and sustainable business practices between the various countries within which companies operate.
That really sounds handy to have the regulations. That sounds a little bit exhausting because I saw that slide where it really increased over time. And there's so many from last year, and I guess even this year, there were even more, that they don't have to worry about it, but SAP takes care of it. That is really handy, I guess. I have the second poll open for everyone, and I see everyone is also 12 out of 8 now already participating. It's multiple choice, so you can select more options here. And so personally, another question that I had, what is Ding Talk? I don't know that social media, and I think it's interesting that even localization is so prominent in social media.
Yeah, so Ding Talk is one of the really popular social media in China. It has
Right.
millions and millions of users. The other one that's very popular is WeChat. And many employees in China expect that capabilities they use, like an employee self-service, is served to them in their social media of choice. And one of those social media of choice is Ding Talk. Another one that's very popular in Thailand, for example, is Line. And so if you want to operate in Thailand and want to reach employees, the workforce, in the environment that they're comfortable with, in the environment that they enjoy, then being available with employee self-services in Line in Thailand comes in very handy.
Cool. I didn't know. I'm just using WhatsApp and Instagram and like the LinkedIn and Twitter and a little bit of TikTok lately as well. Oh, did I say that? All right. So I'll end the second poll and I share the results with all of you. We have 3 minutes left, and I found it interesting that, especially for SAP S/4HANA Cloud, there will be 16 new languages added, right? Or 16 new countries.
16 new local versions.
Local versions coming up. Okay, cool. That's at least that I remembered for SAP S/4HANA Cloud. But can you share other, like an outlook and other upcoming changes and implementations in localization for the next quarters?
Definitely, as mentioned, sustainability is an area that we will be heavily seeing results pouring into the market. Another one is the topic of electronic invoicing and statutory reporting, as there's so many new countries coming up with regulations. And of course, if we look at the topic of payroll, together with SAP's offering for RISE, which some of you might have heard, we're also serving there. So it's in all areas of the localization, and not to forget, of course, Concur, ever more active around the globe. Here we're close to the fellow employees because Concur has the beauty of reaching so many people around the world. So if we serve more locations around the world, that also helps people to really get hands-on experience what localization may mean to them.
Great. So there's a lot of coming up, a lot of news, and I hope that everyone stays up to date with the latest and greatest on localization and globalization services with SAP in general. We're at the top of the hour. There's 2 minutes left. I really want to thank you, Elvira, for your time, that you were here with us today and shared your insights. The recording will be on YouTube, so please, everyone, feel free to share the recording with friends, family, colleagues, everyone that is interested and that you think needs to have this information handy. With that being said, I'll hand over to you, Elvira, again for some closing words, and then I'll wish everyone a lovely day.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, SAP Community, for hosting me today. It was my real pleasure to be here. Check us out on LinkedIn, check us out on Twitter. We regularly share success stories, and we'd love to meet you there. Enjoy and
Brilliant.
Stay safe, stay healthy.